Hi guys, it's Blakey for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft. Today I would like to start the series on the practical field guide to the Percussion Revolver. Now, I have been utilizing percussion revolvers for 30 plus years. It was one of my very first handguns that I carried in the field. In fact, this is the very first one. This is a Navy Arms, what they call the Johnny Reb, or Confederate Army. It's a 44 caliber revolver, and this gun taught me a great deal about what is a good field revolver and what to use it for. Now, let me put a little disclaimer in here. After 150 years of improvement in metallurgy, propellants, bullet design, and everything, I am in no way claiming that these percussion revolvers are superior to modern guns. I'm sure your Glock, your 40, your 44 Magnum, your 6.66 Tyrannosaurus Rex Slayer is a better gun in some case. What I'm simply saying is it's very short-sighted to dismiss these guns out of hand as being nothing but curiosities. They can be a practical field revolver as a companion piece to carry when you're afield for hunting, bushcraft, and etc. They can be a very good gun for that. All it requires is a little bit of thinking and a little bit of experience with the weapon, and it becomes very practical. Now, let me give you a little bit of history. These guns came about prior to the Civil War. Samuel Colt brought out a gun called the Patterson, and I will put a picture in here. This gun was the first kind of practical field gun. It was a 5-shot, carried a decent length barrel, was relatively easy to reload in the field, and it gave the soldier, the individual, some firepower. Prior to this, everything was a single shot or little bitty pepper boxes that were made for, 5-foot distance. This gave you a field gun. One of the gentlemen who was first to use the Patterson was a man who later became Captain Walker of Texas Rangers, or U.S. Mounted Rifles, and he would go on to work with Sam Colt to bring out the first true practical military revolver, and that was the Colt Walker, and I'll put a picture in right here. The Colt Walker was a carbine power in a handgun. It held 60 grains, and even by today's standard, it commands respect. It's more powerful than any automatic pistol. It's more powerful than a lot of revolvers. You have to have the word Magnum after the name of the cartridge to actually be more powerful than a Walker. It holds 60 grains of powder. From that began a series of other military improvements that were the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Model Dragoon, ultimately culminating in the 1860 Army, which I will put pictures of those up here. On the other end of that scale, Colt realized that the personal defense market was a big deal, and so he came out with a small revolver in 31 caliber that could be used as a personal defense weapon. This gun was commonly called the Baby Dragoon, and here's a picture of it here. This led to later the improved 1849 pocket model, and when you think Miner 49er, California Gold Rush, that's when this model was very popular. And here's a picture of an 1849. The next big leap was a full-size belt revolver, which was the 1851 Navy. Now, this gun served in the Civil War. So did the 1860 Army. And this began the argument back in those days that we still have today a lot of times between 9mm and 45s. One's easier to shoot, one hits harder. You could say that the great-grandfather to that argument was the 51 Navy and the 1860 Army. Those that said the 60 Army hit harder, and those that said that the 51 Navy was more accurate to shoot. The 51 Navy was the favorite of Wild Bill Hickok. Notice that he still carried those guns well into the cartridge era. Now the percussion revolver era spans from, really we're going to say about 1850. Actually it was before that. 1847 was the Walker and 1836 was the Patterson. But we're going to say about 1850 to about 1873 whenever the cartridge revolvers came out, which was the single action Army. And I'll put up a picture of that here. During that time period, there was a huge leap in evolution in the guns. Now, I'm not going to bog you down with a bunch more history, but needless to say, in that 25, 30-year period in there was the vast majority of this being the state of the art. We fought the Civil War with these guns. They were very effective personal defense weapons. Now, in later days, when we came out with the cartridge revolvers, like the Colt Patterson, Peacemaker, some people call it, and other models, they were just improving what the percussion revolver did. It became more convenient to load. But we lost a little something as well. And people that had experienced both sides of it, who had started in the percussion era and later were into the cartridge era, several people mentioned that they thought that the cartridge gun was a little more, the percussion gun was a little more effective. And that was because the percussion revolver used a pure lead ball. When that ball hit, it mushroomed upon impact. It was soft, so it spread out like a flattening out a marshmallow. It grabbed and tore. It performed the function like we think of a hollow point. They had to add a lot of tin to the lead to make the cartridge bullet, because it had grooves in it to carry the grease for lubrication, and it had to sit inside of the brass. That action of loading it on a pure soft ball would deform it, so the bullets tended to have tin in it and hardeners and things like that. Consequently, they penetrated better, but they didn't expand as well. Now we'll get into that in a minute. I won't get ahead of myself. But let's look at what these revolvers are good for today. Okay?